Hello and welcome to another episode of the B2B Leadership Podcast. My name is Nils Vinje, and today my guest is Austen Asadorian. Austen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here. Ready to get this thing going.
Let's do it, man. We're going to have some fun. I cannot wait to dig into all things leadership with you. But first, would you share with me and this audience the role that you're in today and the company that you work for?
Absolutely. So again, name's Austen Asadorian. I'm the VP of Sales at a company called SevenRooms. And you might ask, Ness, what is SevenRooms? SevenRooms is a guest data management platform for restaurants and the hospitality industry. So it really allows guests, restaurants to better engage with guests, to better understand who they are through data and insights, through the tooling that you would use every day at the restaurant level. So from reservation platforms to understanding what their preferences are, but it really allows restaurants to better understand their guests so that they can maximize profits and build their business with their guests.
Okay, so differentiate for me where you guys come in. It sounds like you're capturing an awful lot more about each guest and kind of their individual specific unique needs, preferences, and things, and to help build a relationship. But how are you different from just a reservation type of system, which is probably the more generic version of what everybody would understand when you think about guest management?
Sure. It's a great question. And the most basic answer is the majority of reservation platforms in the market have what's called a marketplace, a place where you can go that you're familiar with to search and discover for restaurants. And that is a very good thing for restaurants, right? To allow guests to find you and discover you. But it also has, the dark side, as you might say. And so there's cost associated with it. And most importantly, you don't understand who those guests are. Mm-hmm. And so the basic example is you go onto Google and you say, hey, I want to search for an Italian restaurant near me. Yep. And usually a consumer network will pop up. It'll bring you to this place. You find it and you land there, but the restaurant doesn't really know who you are. They withhold the data. They keep all the data. They keep the reviews afterwards. So you as a restaurant, you don't actually understand who that guest is. And how can you ever turn that person into a repeat visitor, someone that becomes a lifetime valued guest? So with SevenRooms, we cut out that middleman marketplace and we help restaurants build direct relationships. So white labeling all the reservation widgets, plugging into all the partner channels where guests might find you and explore for you. And then really what's most important is our ability to help bring guests back. Because we don't have a marketplace, there's no conflict of interest over, hey, who actually owns that guest data? Is it the marketplace or is it the restaurant? And so for us, it's all about providing the restaurants with that data, with that guest information. So they are the one to be able to facilitate repeat visit, retention, new orders, all through their direct channels, which is super important to the success of the industry.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. I never would have really thought about that from the, of course, the restaurant perspective, because I'm not involved in that. But from the guest perspective, I imagine what they're getting is a much more tailored and custom experience than they would be if they were just a random show up person. Like the restaurant actually knows who they are. Is that right?
Exactly. And so if you're a guest, I imagine you have your favorite restaurants locally. They should know who you are, right? They should know where you like to sit, what you like to eat, when you come in, how often do you order online and do pickup and delivery versus come into the restaurant. And so, that's a huge part of what we do is just help restaurants better understand those guests to provide that personalized experience. If you think about the restaurant industry, it all starts with an idea. Someone said, I want to open a restaurant. I've got an incredible menu, an incredible concept. It's awesome. And then when it comes to, wait, how do I bring people into my restaurant? The industry says you need to be reliant on third parties. And what we're saying is your brand should stand alone. You should be able to support your business through the relationships you build with your guests. And if you want to plug into third parties to bolster net new diners that you can convert to repeat guests, that's absolutely part of your business plan. But you don't need to be 100% reliant on a marketplace to be in control of the destiny of your business.
Wow. That's fascinating. Very cool. A lot of rich data enabling some incredible experiences. I mean, that's what we're all after when you go to a restaurant. Everybody knows when you go to a restaurant and you have an incredible experience, especially if the staff knows you or they understand, special occasions or what's going on, it just makes it that much better. And if you're going to foster the creativity of that and allow restaurants to take control, I think that's a wonderful solution.
Imagine you've seen in the movies, right? So, someone walks into the bar and they're like, hey, Bill,
yep.
The usual,
yep.
Right? And they know that, right? So being able to just little simple things, knowing people's names, welcoming people back, acknowledging someone that's been to a restaurant in your portfolio, but maybe not this restaurant. And then being able to engage with them automatically, save time, give more operational efficiencies. Like there's so many small components to what SevenRooms can do for a business. But obviously the key one is helping them better understand their guests.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to make everybody feel like a high roller, right? That's
part of the name,
the end
part
goal.
of the game. Yeah, absolutely part of it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. All right. So fascinating work you're doing with SevenRooms there. But now let's shift gears and let's talk some leadership. And I want to go back in time. And would you share with me how you got into your very first leadership position?
Sure. Got to go way back in time. So I'll skip the growing up and being kind of like captains of sports teams, because that was kind of a common thread. But one of the first professional promotions I ever got was when I was working in the restaurant industry. So I worked for a restaurant group called Hillstone Restaurant Group. And they're incredible. They own and operate 30, 40 plus different restaurants across the country. And they're known for their consistency, their service, and their training program. They breed managers that understand how to operate in a very difficult environment, and to make restaurants successful. Because at the end of the game, name of the game is make them successful. So they teach you how to do that and how to go out into the field and how to become future leaders of that business. So one of the first promotion I ever received in that organization outside of the training program was to become an assistant kitchen manager. And I was just telling the story to an old colleague 2 days ago when I was on a trip. And when you come out of the training program, you're supposed to go on a small little vacation. It's like the first time, give you a breath of fresh air. Yeah. Something we actually do at SevenRooms. It's a fresh start program to have a fresh start, fresh perspective. I didn't get that. So I went right into the industry, and I was an assistant manager, and I was there for 6 to 9 months through the holiday season. It's the busiest season imaginable. It's one of our busiest restaurants in the organization. Grueling work, 16, 18 hours a day. And finally, I came up for air, and I was able to schedule that elusive, vacation. So I think it's day one of that vacation. It's like a Monday morning. I'm living in New York City. I'm waking up. I'm going to the coffee shop. I'm going to hang out and kind of figure out what I'm going to do for the week. No plans. It was great. Staycation. Get a call from my boss, and he just mentions to me, hey, your manager's moving out of your restaurant and moving somewhere else. So hope you enjoyed your vacation, though brief, which we're talking 2 hours now. We're going to need you back in the restaurant tomorrow morning. This is what we're calling a battlefield promotion in the truest sense. And so we cut that vacation short. I took over my first restaurant in 2009, 2010. And the rest is history. Spent 3.5, 4 years, great years with that company, opening new showrooms, opening restaurants, opening up and training all their new team members, and growing with inside that organization, which was great.
Wow. Okay. So the battlefield promotion is interesting, and there's a lot of parallels to what goes on inside your organization, I'm sure, today, as well as virtually every other B2B, primarily SaaS business, where there's battlefield promotions that happen all the time. What did the Hillstone Group, which is known for its training program and enablement and everything, what did they provide as a way to transition you from this assistant, to now actually managing the restaurant? Because that's a big jump.
It was a big jump. They do allow for a level of autonomy, which is nice. I think they also understand that, everybody's different, right? So they try to create an ecosystem where everyone's the same. All your servers from location to location have the same teamwork mentality. And so when it comes to the operations, you try to be as consistent as possible. And in a restaurant group like that, it's also much more feasible because if you get a hamburger in California, you're going to have the same exact experience in New York City because the spec, the way you cook it, all of it is defined and programmed. So from creating the lanes in which you operate in, and what the outcomes need to be, they do a phenomenal job because they understand what good looks like, right? We have defined what this should look like. Now you have to get there. I did learn a lot from my previous manager too. So she was super helpful in training me on what success looked like, how to do things inside that organization, how to run inventory, how to run your P&L, how to manage your food costs and your labor costs, how to actually run the kitchen. And so one of the things you learn in every industry is what does that person do really well, right? And my boss told me when I took over that job, he was the head of R&D. He said, when I took over the assistant kitchen manager job, he said, your goal in this role is to learn everything that your boss does well, that does really well, but also to acknowledge the things that you would do differently in the event you are the manager, right? And when the time comes and I sit this person down and ask them for a review of your performance, they should be able to say, I don't know what I would do without him, but this is what I would do. And I would say, he's so instrumental to the success of our business. He said, that is when you will be ready to take on the restaurants.
Wow.
And so that's how I approach it. It's taking on the good things, the things you learn that you didn't know, embracing them, humbling yourself to say, hey, teach me. And at the same time, looking around and saying like, maybe I would have done it differently if I was given the autonomy to make those decisions. And so where Hillstone in particular, they train you on all the ways of how you want to do things. When it comes to kitchen management, you need to be a little bit more symbiotic with the other managers. Learn from the best, observe the opportunities, and then when you're given the chance, take the opportunities and turn them into your new success stories.
Wow, that's some incredible advice. And I think appropriate regardless of, this comes from the restaurant industry, but has so many perfect parallels to the B2B world, right? And
100%.
there's an interesting piece of about what you said I want to dig into, which is, appreciate what your direct manager does exceptionally well, but also acknowledge what you would do differently. And I think a lot of times there can be this belief that, to make someone's kind of stance or to show how good they are or whatever, they might say, oh, well, I would totally do it this way. And even though that's true, they're not maybe paying as much respect to the way that things are done by that leader. So how did you balance that? Like accepting that, hey, you do this really well, but I would do it totally differently. It's almost like two different ways of working through it. How do you think about that? Even now in the B2B world, where I know it's a different environment, but the principles still apply.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've taken through my entire career, right? So, and then what I always say to everybody is, what you've learned in a current company, you're going to take the best things that you've learned and the things that you would never do again to your next company. And that'll make you better for it. You will learn and grow. So the most important thing I would say is there's a fine line between managing your team, managing yourself, and managing up. Right. And so managing up is possibly the most difficult thing you can do, because you might have all these great ideas, but you don't know how to communicate them to your leadership team, to your boss, so that they really understand that, hey, I know what I'm talking about. Give me the chance. And so it's by being proactive, and it's by presenting opportunities and ideas and doing it in a way that's not, hey, I don't like what you're saying. But believe me, I've done that plenty of times and gotten, my hand slapped a lot. So you learn from those mistakes. And so it needs to be data driven. It needs to be outcome driven. And so if you say you have a better idea, it's not just, hey, I have a better idea, or hey, that idea is bad. It's, hey, I think we can do it a different way. And I think if we look at it from the lens of what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve, whether it's more sales or better output in the restaurant, or, time saving, whatever the outcome is, it's really saying like, these are the goals of this initiative regardless. And so can we optimize the way we get there? And most importantly, this is just a concept I absolutely live by. It's like, you might get turned down and you might disagree, but inside your organization, you also need to disagree and commit, right? It's okay to disagree. It's okay to be shot down. You won't forget it, but you'll learn from it. And you also can't be the person that says, I told you so. So you need to commit to the initiative, be a team player, and move forward. So that's just some of the advice I would give.
Love it. And that focus on the outcomes, I think, is the key linchpin there. And what that does, based on what you were saying, is remove the personal and remove the emotional part of this and say, well, the bigger picture here is the outcome that this organization, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a B2B business, doesn't matter. The outcome here is that we want X. And I've done some thinking about how to get more of X. And I've got some ideas that I'd like to share, which some of them might be related to what is happening today that's being driven by current leadership. And some of it might be totally different, but it's that focus on the outcome that I think is going to keep you in a, neutral place, if you will, so that you don't come back or come off as the, I told you so, and I have better ideas. So therefore you should be fired and I should be promoted.
Absolutely. And the only thing I would add is outcomes are important. The process is important, and the inputs are just as important. So, a business could hit their benchmarks, but if the internal organization is in flux and there's a lot of sloppiness to it, like you need to make sure that not only are the outcomes the ones you want, the way you got there was the way you want to get there, and it's something you can iterate on. So the inputs matter just as much. And then being able to track it through data, like being able to really evaluate what does success look like because of this outcome, that's very valuable as well throughout the entire process that you're trying to institute.
Got it. Great point.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going from the restaurant world, of which you spent a fair amount of time, a number of years, we're very successful in. And then now you're a VP of sales inside of the tech world and the B2B side. So how did that
Mm-hmm.
transition happen? And how did you go from being a restaurant manager to then getting a foot in the door on the tech side?
Sure. Good question. There's a little bit of luck baked into the story. The way it all happened is I exited from Hillstone. It was winter of 2013, I believe. I was just burnt out. You're working 18 hours a week. I don't think I was capable of disagreeing and committing to what the asks were at the time. And I was young. And so, made a leap of faith and just said, I'm going to go at it on my own. In my own way. And, for me, it was not in the restaurant space. I just needed a breather. I needed my holidays back. I needed my family back. I wanted to be with my friends. And that's something that I had given a lot of sacrifice towards because I wasn't available very often for any of those people. So I wanted that back. And, the big passion of mine is, health and wellness. And so I went down the path of I said, I'm going to be a personal trainer. I love sports. I was a college athlete. I grew up with sports. It's a big passion of mine. In the Hamptons, where this is a thing that is a big business that you see a lot of folks doing, I think I'm going to try it as well. And so I became a personal trainer. I started consolidating and marketing myself, getting a handful of clients. Through sheer luck, I met a partner who I was capable of opening a small business with, and she allowed me to teach these classes. And so now we're supplementing a job. And I'm in the Hamptons with my wife, and we have a lease for my now wife, my at the time girlfriend. And we have a lease for another 9 months. And so I'm not going anywhere. She told me, you moved me out here. We're staying out here because I got a new job and I want to do a year there before I leave. Great. So I need to figure out my future. And it's early days. I don't think I was ever really educated on how to find a job. So I found myself online browsing Craigslist.
Where all good jobs come from for a lot of years, and I still think, but this one's especially good.
Yeah, this is years ago. So I just browsing. I see a post that's like, East Hampton, do you like fitness and are you passionate about technology? And the answers are yes. Do you like cycling? Yeah, I had a mountain bike and I had a road bike, and these are things I did with my wife on my spare time. And so I send in my resume, and I finally get a response from a gentleman who is now a good friend of mine. And they're looking, this company called Peloton is looking to open up a showroom in East Hampton. They're looking to expand into the retail sector. They have this new product that hasn't been brought to the world yet. They have a website. They're taking some deposits. They made some money on Kickstarter, but they're relatively unknown. And so by happenstance, they had a showroom in where I grew up in New Jersey. And they were like, hey, you should come see the product, see the bike. And I mean, this is 2014, January of 2014. And, I look at this product, I'm like, you guys are crazy. You want to put a screen on a bike and you want to do this? And so.
And how many people were there in the Peloton company at that point in time?
15 to 20.
Yeah. Posting ads for jobs on Craigslist to find people to potentially help with showrooms.
Yeah. So they had a showroom. So maybe the number is a little bit higher in terms of like total, but like at the corporate headquarters, no more than 24 people. Wow. I don't have any other options at the time, right? I can't leave. I've got this small business. I need a stable income, and they were willing to provide that. And so, I did the roadshow, and I met the head of business operations, the head of sales. I ended up meeting the CEO, and one of the things they said was like, we're going to give you a chance. We all love what Hillstone does. We love the consistency. We love the environment. We love the approach that they take to running a business. We want to recreate that kind of concept inside of our showroom spaces and then blend it with the Warby Parker retail experience, the Tesla retail experience. Let's create something special. And so that summer, we launched this flagship location in the Hamptons in conjunction with like the Series A press release. And we were in a really fortunate position where this particular location was doing 300% more than every other retail showroom relative to the market and the opportunity. And so because of that great experience, that 4-month stint of that summer, it afforded me the opportunity to actually go and work for their corporate team and help grow and develop out their retail expansion and oversee, all of the things in small startups. So hiring, training, sales, how do you do it? And I was a part of that company for an incredible 4 years. We opened north of 35 showrooms across the country. We grew the sales and retail team north of 300. And it was incredible. It was an incredible experience, life-changing experience. And it brought me into the tech world, though slightly untraditional because it's a hardware product.
Yeah, true. And software and subscription, right? And all that.
Subscription and software. And but when you're selling, it's the component on the sales side is when you're selling, a $39 subscription is nothing or relative compared to a $3,000 product that someone needs to buy. So the way we looked at it was selling the consumer good and then gaining commitment on the subscription side, because that's actually the easier sell, because a studio class costs $20-$40 anyway in New York City.
Yeah.
So unlimited classes for $39 is a cakewalk.
It's a steal. Especially,
exactly.
That's amazing. All right, so I mean, getting an opportunity to meet and to join, Peloton when it was in this earliest stage, even before the Series A. I mean, that's just absolutely phenomenal. And I imagine that there was an awful lot of, they actually hired you in part because of your experience at Hillstone Group and the efficiency and operational excellence that you had from running a restaurant. So what were the parallels between running a restaurant and opening showrooms and running showrooms?
Yeah, documented process, repeatable process. So for me, it was, how do we organize our back of house inventory? How do we manage our team? What are we wearing? What are we looking like? This is a big thing that they focus on at Hillstone. It's what they call spec. It's like everything needed to be consistent. So we create a model of consistency in one location, and then how do we replicate that in future or existing locations? And so from back of house operations to checklists to opening checklists and closing checklists, things that seem probably very easy to the folks that have been working in retail forever. This is a brand new company that wanted to create a website to sell their product and then go into retail. So fortunate to be given that opportunity, because we were able to take a hybrid approach of, we're a tech company that's going to open retail space. And that was a newer concept back in that time frame. So all those parallels matter. And then the management of the team, right? So one of the things that at Hillstone that was very important is, like, how do you manage your team? How do you communicate to your team? How do you ensure they understand changes to your menu? And how do you actually do your job? And so a lot of the core philosophies that Hillstone took into running their restaurants, I just carried those things over into Peloton, where they hadn't had someone like that bring that to the table yet. And so that was something that really allowed me to be successful in my role.
I mean, powerful. I'm sure they saw tremendous, potential in what you could do. And then you were there for 4 years and opened how many stores across the country, like during that time?
I mean, I left at like 30 plus. And I think, it's funny, my wife was there for 8 years. I think when she left just recently, they're at 150 around the world.
I mean, it's just absolutely amazing, stunning numbers. But what it all comes down to, right, is the process and the systems and the systemization of the whole thing. I love that you said, like, we create a model and then we replicate it. And I don't think that's terribly different from a lot of what we do in the leadership world. We create a model of how our team functions. We create a model of how we engage with customers, create a model of how we sell customers, and then we replicate. We have defined documented processes. We have repeatable systems. We have failure points and checks, and we have things to make sure that the system can run without us, because ultimately that happens at some point in time. And that's the same things that I teach in the B2B Leaders Academy, when I'm focused with working on with managers and directors inside of B2B companies, is helping them build these repeatable systems, much like you just described, so that the system that runs isn't dependent on one person. It's dependent on the system, right? And if you build that model right and fine tune the model and then replicate, you can have all kinds of success and also all kinds of freedom to be able to do and tackle other things.
Mm-hmm. You nailed one thing, the idea that if I were to leave, would it be sustainable? That's the difference between building something that has legs and can grow and you are being the only thing that keeps it afloat. And so, listen, you can have success on both sides of the fence, but it really just depends on what you're trying to achieve as an organization. And so that's something I always try to do, is create repeatable models that you can pass along to your team, your members, so that, hey, you did this, now it can run on its own and you can go focus on other things, ideally, to help continue expanding the business in other areas where you might find gaps.
Yeah. So I want to get your take on this statement, because it's something that I champion, have worked with all my clients over time. Everything I champion in the B2B Leaders Academy is that you should always be working towards working yourself out of your own job. Right. And not for the standpoint that you're not valuable or you're not useful, but the fact that you can get your machine running, get the systems in place to the point where you are not a bottleneck and you are not required to be the only one who can make sure that it runs. That just means that you have freedom to solve bigger problems that are going to contribute more value to the organization. So curious for your thoughts on that.
And I think you nailed it. That's the facts. Those are the facts. That's what you need to do. And it's not about being replaceable or exiting yourself from the business. It's about saying, hey, I'm going to create a muscle and a part of our machine that's going to run smooth, oiled, and it's operating at a high level. And we're going to implant the right people. And let's use my world at sales today. It's, at one point in time, I was running our SMB team, right? And so our SMB team was growing. We needed to expand globally. So we started to hire people in international waters. And then we started to put managers on top of these certain people to give them the motions. And we created an ecosystem where our SMB team could grow and flourish. We could hire people. We could train them. We were seeing success. We were seeing overperformance. And it allowed us to say, hey, let's grow these departments. Let's grow these teams. But at that point, I didn't need to be involved anymore. We had trained the leaders. We had promoted the managers. We had the right muscle memory in place. We can always get better. There's always things you can do to be more efficient. But now they have an ecosystem where they are successful and it is not tied to me in any way, shape, or form. If I didn't come to work for 6 months, they would only grow. And at the same time, the business is challenging me with other areas of opportunity for us to create that model again and again with other departments. So in some cases, yes, that might mean your time has come at that organization. It is not a bad thing. It just means that, hey, there's no more opportunity. So you need to decide, do you want the next opportunity and challenge, or do you want to stay where you are? I am an ever growing, want to learn more, want to do more, want more opportunity. So I'm always going to find the gap and I'm going to raise my hand to say, hey, we did this successfully. Now let's do the same thing here.
Oh, that's amazing. And you and I talked about this before, cut from the same cloth. Having been in a similar position when I was VP of CS, I worked myself out of the job and then I made the decision to leave and go be a consultant and help other people because it was just, that was my passion. That's what I wanted to do. So that took me through the feeling that you have knowing that this is the system that you've built, because it's amazing what it sounds like on the outside. But I want to know what it's like for you, Austen, as the leader from an internal feeling perspective. Is this a feeling of accomplishment? Is it feeling a little bit terrified because now you got to find another big problem? Like, what's the feeling that you get having this system in place and knowing that you could step away for 6 months?
Yeah. The feeling I have, it's a lot of pride. I mean, for me, when it comes to leadership, and you look at all of the places I've been, whether it's sports or at Hillstone or at Peloton or at SevenRooms, it's what is the environment you're creating? Who are the people you're bringing into the business? And what I love most about my job is the people that I've brought in and worked with over the last 5 years at SevenRooms or any of the companies. And if you look back and look at the roster of all the people I've hired or trained or been a part of their growth, that is what I'm most excited about, right? To see these people flourish internally, for them to maybe leave and go externally somewhere else and succeed and flourish there. It's a sense of accomplishment knowing that these people, smarter, better, more capable. I was a part of their success, and I love that. That's one of the one things that I absolutely love about my current company is I've been with this team for 5 years. We've grown together. We've been through a ton. But seeing the growth and development of all the individuals that have grown inside of this organization, that's what keeps me really motivated. I don't know if that answers your question directly, but I think that's what I am super excited about. I'm not nervous. The future will be what it is. It'll find its path. But today I'm super busy. I definitely have more on my plate than I did 6 months ago. So I'm not worried about that part of the problem.
That's perfect. No, and I would have answered in a very similar way. Right? If you had asked me, hey, what's it like when you worked yourself out of the job? The first time it was a little bit terrifying because I honestly didn't know that was kind of where I was headed or the direction it was going. But what you said about being part of other people's success, I mean, that true leadership right there is recognizing that it's not about you. It's about other people. And the more influence that you have on someone else's life in a positive way, the better off you are, the better off they are, even if it's not inside your organization, right? And in this day and age, everybody has a lot of license to go a lot of different places, do a lot of different things, and whatever makes them happy. And if we can support them as leaders, then we win too. And that's one of the most important things. So I'm going to ask you about when you left Peloton, because this is something that's really important that I want to dig in on, because it was not an easy situation for you to ultimately, when you exited the company that you'd been part of since it was the very, very early pre-Series A, all the way up 4 years later, becomes a household name. And all of a sudden, some transition happens and then you exited. Share with us a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, tough time. So spent 4 years at, what I believed at the time was one of the best companies in the world. But, and we all, today I know it's a household name brand, but 4 years ago, even though I had that feeling, not everybody had heard
Yeah.
of Peloton. And, when you're applying for jobs, and I was considering, getting into the tech industry and the SaaS industry, my resume doesn't give me any credibility in that space. It says, hey, this person went to culinary school. They ran in restaurants. They did retail at Peloton. And so selling yourself to be capable of leading a team in an industry that you don't have any experience at that time is very hard. I mean, even today, it's hard to navigate different industries, And for me, I want to really debunk the perception that you need to be a 20-year expert at anything. The world's changing so fast that we can all agree, everyone had a BlackBerry, now everyone has an iPhone. Like, times change, and the way you think about things needs to change. And so I think diversity in your background, especially if you're successful in all those different areas, shows a lot of character about your ability to learn a new industry, your ability to be successful. And so to tell you the story, I was desperately interviewing. I mean, at first it was great. I took 3 months off. I went to Hawaii. I thought I had a lot of fun. And, I took, through lots of introductions, tons of meetings. I'm talking late stage interviews with 20, 50 companies over 3 months.
Wow.
Got rejected at every single one. Told no at every single one.
What was the heart of that? Like, you seemingly had all this success, but then this was so different. What did they tell you?
Lack of direct experience.
Yep.
Right. So they said, hey, you've never done this before. And unfortunately, I get it. We can't take a risk.
Yeah. We can't.
And so for me, and also I'm looking for, right, like we were managing 300 people. We were doing millions of dollars a year, 50 million in ARR. Like, it was a big business we were running, but it didn't resonate. And so for me, I had to swallow a lot of pride. I had to go back and I had to say, hey, I need to start. If I want to be in this industry, I need to start from the ground up. And so through a few different ways, I was trying to help my friend get a job somewhere, and ended up meeting the head of sales at the current company, SevenRooms. They offered me an opportunity as an IC and sell into the restaurant space, which was a new vertical for them. They had primarily focused on concierge and nightlife, and really help redefine product market fit and bring this product to the world. I was the third salesperson in the organization. Again, it was a 20-person company.
Wow.
In the restaurant industry, I had never heard of it, right? And I come from the industry, so all relatively new. And it's not to say it's not without its challenges, but again, they took a shot and said, hey, at least you have the industry experience. That was my saving grace. I'd like to think I can be personable in some capacity. So they said, we'll teach you how to sell, and like, maybe you do a good job. And they took a risk. And I'd like to think that risk paid off. 5 years later, we've grown the business from a very small, $1 million company to a $40 million a year company, wow. Right? So we've seen a lot of growth. And more so, I've been able to tap into my leadership skill set. So as the business has scaled, not without its challenges, I've been able to find myself in a position of leadership where we can help grow this team to what we know it can do. And they've given me that opportunity, which I'm very grateful for.
No, that's wonderful. I mean, to have the humility to take the step back after being on that rocket ship rise, as it was going through with Peloton, have had all that success, and then all of a sudden get the door slammed in your face 50 times telling you, well, you don't have direct experience. Like, wait, but I did all this other stuff. I mean, it's short-sighted in the part, and it happens all the time, right? Whether you're transitioning into SaaS, or you're coming from a different area, trying to get into customer success or into sales. And I think there's a lot of short-sightedness just in terms of people willing to take a risk. And you got to break it apart and look at the individual components of a person and the capabilities and the challenges that they've overcome. Not just, have you been in this sales role for at least 18 months, because that's the checkbox I have to check.
Sure. The one thing I'll add is, listen, sometimes you need to have domain expertise, and at certain levels in the organization, you can't take a risk. You can't bring a new C-suite into the business unless they have experience, right? Like, that's a given. But what we've been able to do, at least on my team, when we really define our hiring profiles, it's not so much, do you have experience selling restaurant technology? It is, what is your personality? How hard of a worker are you? Are you flexible, agile? Are you your ability to learn a new product? I mean, if you're in an industry, for anyone that's listening, if you're in an industry that's disrupting a space, you're going to have to train the people you're hiring on a brand new product and a brand new value prop, no matter what. Doesn't matter where they come from. The main differences might be, do they have industry expertise, and they might have a leg up on learning the industry, but you should be able to teach people the industry. You should be able to teach people your product. And so long as they have the right temperament and personality to be a successful salesperson in any industry, they can likely be successful in your business if you have the right people and tools in place to support them.
Coming back to the system, right? The system
Coming
has
back
to
to the
produce
systems, right?
great people. It has to take raw material, all the ingredients in the restaurant, and produce a great output, the meal. Right? At the end, it's no different when we're thinking about who we hire and bring in. If you have the system, which is this is how we train, this is how we enable, this is how we coach, support, develop, then anybody coming in with the right raw material can be successful.
Exactly. And so as your business evolves, and our business has evolved, we haven't always been able to do this. We needed to have certain people with expertise based on our support to enable them. And then, as we built enablement and the right supportive teams, we were able to really focus on the hiring profile from a soft skills and personality perspective. And let me tell you, like we've nailed it, right? Like our sales team at SevenRooms is always incredibly overachieving. And that's because we have the right people. Mm-hmm. Though if you talk to any of them, maybe 10% come from inside selling tech or in the hospitality space. They're all from different verticals and industries.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Such incredible. I mean, going from $1 million to 40 million, that is no small feat in 5 years. So you are absolutely 100% doing that right. And I love it.
Thank you.
So, okay, last question here. Let's say you could rewind the clock. You could go back in time and sit down with your younger self. Let's pick the time at which you got that battlefield promotion call on that Monday morning when you thought you were going to have the whole week off and the first breath you had taken in several years. And you could sit down with your younger self then. You know everything that you know now from all your experiences at Hillstone, all your experiences at Peloton, everything you're doing at SevenRooms, the whole 9 yards. What advice would you share with your younger self?
I don't remember you asking me this question in the past, so I have to come up on the spot.
That's part of my job is to keep it a little bit fresh. So there's nothing canned on this show.
Sure. So what's some advice I would give to myself? Well, one, I think looking back, I don't think I would do anything totally differently. Like I'm very happy with where I landed. I think I've grown personally and professionally because of the decisions I've made. But some advice I'd probably remind myself is at a younger age to be more tactical and more deliberate in your decision making, right? So this is one component, and I'll kind of compound it to something else. But I think, you don't know what you don't know, okay? And that's, at a young age, when you're young, trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life, you just don't know. You don't know what that means. You don't know what it means to be a VP of sales at a technology company. You don't know what it means to work for a startup. You don't know what it means to work in the restaurant industry. And so what I would do and probably tell myself is go seek out people inside of those worlds and try to understand, what does it look like? What does it mean to become a professional chef? What does it mean to work at a technology company? What does it mean to try to start a business? And learn from people that have failed and succeeded in those efforts. I think, in general, you can't, it's funny with sales. I'm always like, hey, why just take a meeting? Like, tell me you don't like the product afterwards, but how could you possibly make an educated decision without understanding all of your options?
Yeah.
And so if I could go back in time and give myself some advice, it would be just that. I made decisions in my own vacuum. Now, not to say I didn't bounce them off some walls, but I certainly didn't go out of my way to try to understand what the future might look like for me inside of those roles. So that is definitely something I would harp on. I think, that's some advice I give myself today when I'm thinking about decisions I'm making for whatever reason. It's like, go find someone else that's done it first. Hey, you want to buy a new car? Maybe you should go talk to somebody that's bought a new car. Hey, you want to go buy a house? Probably talk to someone that knows a little more about home buying. Like, those are things you do naturally. You should also do those things in your professional career.
Great point. Great advice. That's wonderful. I think we can all take that one to heart, because sometimes, as you said, making decisions in a vacuum can feel like what you have to do. But the reality is the world is great and big and out there. And there's plenty of people who would love to connect and share their experience with you. Yeah. Austen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the only other thing I would tell people, if not to me, I would just remind myself, you need to be able to go high and go low, right? At a restaurant, you need to be able to do the job itself, or you'll never foster the respect of your team. Yeah. In the sales world, if you're a sales leader and you can't sell your product better than some of your sales reps, like you need to make sure you add value. And so being able to understand the pains of an IC all the way to being able to speak to your board and your executive team at a high level, you need to be able to run the gamut of going high and low. And that's going to give you better perspective of what are the gaps you need to solve for problems at different ends of the spectrum. Yeah. So I would remind myself that you should be the first person sweeping the floor in the kitchen, because that's the example you set for your team. So every one of my bosses has always been the person that was the first to pick up the broom and sweep the floor when it was dirty and clean up. And so that's the type of leadership that I think I'd like to instill. And that's the type of leadership I would expect my team to have as they grow into their new roles.
Yeah, that's powerful. And more people and more leaders that come from working with you and have that mentality, I think the better off this world will be, whether it's in tech, whether it's in restaurants, whether it's in hospitality, it doesn't matter. The world will be a better place if everybody's willing to do the work.
Yes, agreed.
All right.
Agreed.
Awesome. Well, Austen, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your stories and your wisdom and all the things that you've learned going from a culinary school to a VP of sales and a B2B tech business. Is absolutely tremendous transformation. And just thank you so much for sharing your advice.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Nils. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Bye.